Last few years, I've been trying to get a hold of a stable job, and every now and then I would start a sentence with, I'm afraid, in relation to any subject related to this job problem. My mom would always say, don't say that, don't be afraid. Even if we were in a bad job market tied down by a global recession, even if there has been, countless rejections thus far, she found it almost silly that anyone would be afraid of serious money problems, especially when Allah is around. And it makes sense, He has been taking care of our lives since way back, even when we were little fetuses inside of our mom's wombs. So this was a beautiful thought, but I wanted to ground it with the Quran. I mean, it was always reassuring hearing those words from my mother, and I'm sure we can all relate to such moments when an elder or someone from a high place gives you a kind word to make you have hope again, but deep down we will always have doubt. After all, a few uplifting words won't magically flip a whole recession upside down to an economic boom. And so I tried looking into Allah's words on this issue. The reason being, Allah's words are not reassurance from just an emotional standpoint. It's a reassurance with absolute certainty. A reassurance backed up by utmost credibility. And that's why Allah's words have always taken the greatest preference when it comes to assuring mankind. So let's see, you have a certain skill set. The market is having a hard time fitting that piece of your skill set into the bigger economy. On top of that, the economy took a hit. What does Allah have to say about this? Let's take a jog down memory lane. Islamic history, Battle of Uhud. Here, Allah mentions to us an episode in Surah Al-Imran when Muslims received news that a group of people from Quraysh were about to surprise attack the Muslims right after the battle took place. Now, the Sahaba went through serious conflict, and so for them to be surprise attacked, that's just not the best timing. The reaction you'd expect would be panic, confusion, and most significantly, fear. The fear of possibly being overwhelmed at any moment by a surprise raging army. Likewise, the failing economy might overwhelm you and the country you reside in. The conditions can financially and psychologically break us, either from prolonged unemployment or in the form of having a failing business and an unstable livelihood. The typical expected reaction here is very similar to what we would expect of our Muslim brothers to have so many years ago. Panic, confusion, and most importantly, fear. And what was the actual case documented? So the moment they get the news, in Surah Al-Imran, Allah tells us what happened. And He says, الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسِ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Those whom people said, the people have gathered against you, so fear them. It increased them in faith, and they said, Allah is fully sufficient for us and the best one in whom to trust. They were told that this situation calls for fear and precaution. They were led to believe panicking is the only appropriate response. And here is where the Muslims took a different stand than the typical crowd. Yes, the enemy mobilized, but that was not enough of an excuse to demoralize them. Instead, it increased their faith even more. They were unfazed. They stated, Allah is enough for us for protection. Allah is the greatest disposer of all affairs, the best one who we can put our trust in. It's that simple for them. Yes, an economy can be overwhelming, but believe me when I tell you, Allah is more overwhelming than a global economy, more overwhelming than a bunch of dramatic line graphs. And Allah can easily penetrate the system's flaws and still dispose of your affairs accordingly. He is enough for us, even in the face of a recession. The conviction of our faith in these moments is absolutely necessary, and perhaps that's what Allah expects of us in these hard times. This stand, this confidence of His ability to cross us to the other side and find job security, which is essentially a halal job you fit in or you fit for with sufficient income. It's also really that simple. When the faith was proven and manifested in the Sahaba's hearts, Allah goes on to say, فَانْقَلَبُوا بِنَعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ لَمْ يَمْسَسْهُمْ سُوءٌ وَاتَّبَعُوا رِضْوَانَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَظِيمٍ. So they returned with bounty from Allah and grace, with no evil having even touched them, and submitted to the pleasure of Allah. And Allah is the Lord of great bounty. Allah let them be protected until they reached Medina, safe from harm, and no one eventually actually showed up to do any damage or inflict any pain. They were left untouched. They received Allah's favor and grace. This is for their conviction and for their keen attention to give Allah the pleasure and the stature He is truly worthy of. We can also receive this. We can receive Allah's favor and grace for this conviction in who He is. Allah, interestingly, ends this verse with the fact that He is the Lord of mighty grace. وَاللَّهُ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَظِيمٍ. The word of grace being fadl. is also a consistent term that is used throughout the Quran when describing provisions and trade, basically jobs too. Allah is saying here that all sources of provisions, our bounties, our jobs in life are in His hands, not the economy. That's the greatest truth. One can benefit from this. Therefore, my mom was right. We can't fear a recession. We shouldn't. Instead, we should do our part and raise our iman and say, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is enough for us, and Allah is the best one in whom to trust. And now to the other side of the coin. Let's say you do find a job and you wholeheartedly hate it, okay? There is no time in your day. You hate everyone at work except a few who you can barely stand. The paycheck isn't worth your effort, no appreciation. Let me just share, how Allah classifies our day jobs. In Surah Al-Jum'ah, He calls it فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And when the prayer is over, disperse in the land and seek Allah's bounty and remember Allah much so that you may be successful. And go out there in the land to seek His bounty. وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. I thought about this and realized work is just that, seeking. We aren't meant to place the world on our shoulders and experience incredible stress for outcomes completely out of reach. We just go out there, do our best to seek the bounty that's generously laid out there by Allah. It's simple, but we complicate. We complicate by seeking more than that. We seek appeal, prestige, and glory along with the bounty instead. This adds more load than intended. Suddenly, life centers around our work and everything becomes gloomy. We will never be satisfied. We will always want the better company. You will always think about the better position, the bigger salary. This can't be the way for something so simple described as seeking Allah's bounty. We shouldn't blow things out of proportion. Our work is just a means to have a dignified life. If this is really the bounty of Allah Himself, then all work is dignified. Doesn't matter how small or big your position is, doesn't matter how small or big your company is, you're going to be taken care of, for your needs. And I think as soon as we realize this, inshallah, the appeal, the prestige, and the glory would rain down on you anyway, because you're finally content with what Allah has given you. And if we are content with what Allah has given us, if we do that, Allah will definitely give more. End of the day, everyone is on a different path to something. And our job, thankfully, is not the destination. There is more to all of us than a day job. Earn your experiences and your money. And remember, you can always carry out your own plans and ambitions in other places. Seek your bounties, don't worship them. And if you can't find a job, then fear Him. Don't fear a failing economy. And of course, as always, I just want to remind you, this is not a tafsir, this is a reflection on the established meanings of the verses amongst our scholars. I'm not your neighborhood scholar or your teacher, I'm just some Muslim kid.